we're going to work on today are vertical single hip figure eights. So our weight will be on one leg, like when we do a hip drop or when we do hip bumps, anything like that. Same kind of place for our foot position. Now, we talk about this as drawing a vertical shape, but because of how our bodies are put together, there is also a twisting element to this movement. There has to be, because of how, like I said, how we're put together. All right. So in the previous Technique Tuesday, previous couple, we've been doing front to back horizontal figure eights, and we've been talking about moving our feet with those hips. So we're going to actually take that up into our vertical eight. So with all of your weight on one side, we're going to be drawing this figure eight down to the back, up, over, down to the front. So this is what our figure eight is going to do. As we go down to the back, we start to open the hip. So we want to take the toes of that leg with us, squeeze the oblique to lift up, and then as we go down to the front, same thing. And I actually moved my standing leg just a tiny bit as well, twisting forward and then pulling that up through the front side body. So we're going to go down to the back, lift, down to the front, lift, down to the back, lift, down to the front, lift. And all the while trying to keep our upper body on one plane rather than taking everything with us. We want to really twist just that hip underneath. Let's look at that on the other side. On this side, we're going to add a little leg drag. So if you look at just a hip arc, so if all I do is bring this hip up and over to the front and then up and over to the back, and I leave my leg relaxed, and rather than planting it in one spot on the floor, what's going to happen is I'm going to go over to the front, and if you don't anchor to the floor, your leg goes back a tiny bit. And then I'm going to arc up over to the back, and I will find that without planting in the floor, my leg will want to move forward. So look at that all by itself a few times. So we go up and over to the front and down, up and over to the back, down. And the reason this is happening, again, is because the up and over to the back and the front, we open the hip here, we close it here. Open to the back, open to the front, and you can even adjust your standing foot as you do this as well for even less stress on those knees. All right, we're going to come back to, I'm just going to keep switching hips because your standing leg gets a little tighter. All right, so how do we incorporate this in with that figure eight? Well, instead of just keeping the ball of the foot, which is fine, keeping the ball of the foot on the floor and just twisting through, that is a fine and valid way of working with this movement. So it's not wrong. I'm just showing you another variation. So the other variation, as I lift up and forward, the leg's going to go back, and it's going to come through, back and forward, through, back and forward. So now if you look on the floor, your foot is also tracing a little figure eight. Boom. All right. Now, if you have better balance than I do right now, this one can also be done with that leg completely off the floor and flowing. Some days I'm great at this. I've just been gardening on a hill, so I've already compromised my stability enough for one day. All right, so we have now 3 ways of doing vertical figure eights, the single hip. One with the ball of the foot on the floor, with the foot stationary. One where the foot drags, and one where one side's better than the other. One where we can do it with the foot off the floor as well. So work on those 3. Work your way up to doing it completely off, because it does look really cool. Yeah, and that's this week. So I guess that was kind of a little short and sweet. Just make sure that you are keeping that leg in line with your hip, as you're twisting it forward and back to make that vertical figure 8 shape with the hip. All right. So thanks so much for joining me again today.